My name's Tyler Hughes, and this is my journey to be an Ironman. So, my journey to be an Ironman started out a little bit different than most people you see competing in the Ironman events. I'm a very competitive person by nature. I grew up racing motocross at a very high level, transitioned into ball sports as I got a little bit older, and then once I hit my teens, I really got into weightlifting, so the next viable step there was to compete in competitive bodybuilding. So I had a very strong strength training foundation, but growing up throughout those years, I was diagnosed with kyphosis, so curvature of the upper spine, as well as I have 3 fused vertebrae in my lower. My lower 3 are completely fused from birth. Never an injury that had happened, but something that I had caught that I had later on in life, kind of after I started weight training, so probably around the 16-year-old range, and I was told, hey, you shouldn't weightlift, you shouldn't run, you shouldn't do basically anything that I was already doing up until that point. So I really just continued to do what I was doing, continued weightlifting, and I believe that weightlifting and strengthening my core and strengthening all my stabilizers is what has helped keep my spine and everything else that's attached to your spine, so your entire alignment, is what's kept that healthy for me. Because with that, my hips were then misaligned, so my legs were, one leg was always longer than the other, causing all kinds of issues when it came to running. So I don't have an athletic background per se. I was never a runner, swimmer, cyclist, football player, or anything that really involved athleticism. So that's kind of how it started. Never an athlete, but bodybuilding. So I understood the fundamentals of strength training, which has carried over to the endurance training side of things. That mindset of progressive overload. I don't have a coach. I've never had a coach. And I got into this on a whim, kind of through my now fiance's mom. My fiance always told me, hey, you would love to do triathlons. I'm like, no way, I don't run, I can't run. List of excuses on why I can't do it rather than why I can do it. I always love challenging myself to something new, learning something new, as well as being competitive. It kind of is in my history. I'm always trying to improve myself, and then if it is a competition, I want to be the best. So over the past probably 2 years, I started just running. I wanted to look good on vacation, so I just did a lot of walking. I'm talking hours of walking per day to get in shape. And then that's what transpired into me. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a run. Probably 2.5 years ago now, I was on vacation. I'm like, I'm gonna go for a run. Went for a run, got lost in the neighborhood I was running in because it was in the Dominican Republic, and what I was planning on like a 1-mile run turned into a 4-mile run in the summertime, peak heat, peak humidity, and I'm like, wow, that was really not that difficult. So that kind of just unlocked something in my brain that I didn't think I could do and gave me that drive to want to improve that. So once I got back to the United States, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna pick up running. And I also bought a road bike. So 2 of the components to triathlons with no intention of triathlon, just I enjoy, kind of was getting more into the endurance side of things. So I start training for running. I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. I have no clue on shoes. I have no clue on form. I have no clue on technique, heart rate, zones, paces, nothing. So I'm just going out. I'm going out in cotton like sweatpants shorts, cotton socks, but I'm just getting started. First couple weeks go by, no problem. I'm like, I'm gonna go for a 10-mile run. Probably 5 runs in, go for my 10-mile run, and I'm like, this is it. I found it. So I thought, has a way of humbling you. Endurance training does if you don't know what you're doing. And I did not know what I was doing. So continued to run a little bit, and there was the turkey trot coming up, so a 5K. I knew, once again, no, I didn't know anything about running. I thought a turkey trot was just like a bunch of people just kind of going around. Didn't know people actually did it fast. I ended up getting an injury, probably an overuse and improper shoe for my feet injury, which allowed me to not train at all. And then I went out and did the 5K. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I'm like, but I need to rehab my knee. So basically took weeks off of running and just continued to eat correctly and strength train. That brings us into almost 2 years ago to the day, so probably about a year and a half ago, give or take. The idea of actually doing a triathlon had come about. This was probably March of 2024, and I signed up for a local sprint distance. I had been swimming a couple times, running kind of, and biking kind of, but didn't know anything. But thankfully my fiance's mom, Jamie, was there, helped me set up everything. The swim ended up being canceled due to riptides and pretty substantial waves, so thankfully it did get canceled. That was probably a blessing for me. But so it turned into a duathlon, so it was a 1 mile run, 10 mile bike, 3 mile run. I did that, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. Didn't like the dual running though, that sucked. Wasn't on board for that. So then comes another local triathlon series. I was traveling a lot, so I was getting in my training where I could, and there was a called International, so it's not quite Olympic, and it's not a sprint. I think it's like 800 meter swim, 20 mile bike, and a 6.2 mile run. So I signed up for that. Had got a little more training in and went out, and I got third place in my age group. It was like a 225 or something. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I really got the itch for it. And along that time, I kind of, after my very first sprint duathlon, I guess it was, started to look into the Ironman branded races and saw the 70.3. I believe I signed up for that, would have been August of 2024. I signed up for the Augusta 70.3. So I had just signed up for that. And then I think that's around that time is when the DeSoto triathlon series was kicking off. So I went, I did that. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. The atmosphere is what really grew my liking towards the sport, and everybody was so kind and helping and encouraging, and it was just overall a great experience. I'm like, I can get behind this. Coming from weightlifting where it's just you. Don't get me wrong, all the training is, the hard part of triathlon is just you. I'm the only one out there training. I'm the only one keeping myself accountable, but come race day, which is the easy part, depending how you look at it, it's a very good environment, from the people cheering to the competitors to everything. So that got my feet wet. I'm like, okay, this is good. And I believe I had like maybe 8 weeks or so to train for Augusta. I had started my long rides, just implementing my techniques of weightlifting, progressive overload. So each week, just a couple more miles, a couple more minutes. I didn't know anything about zones, but I unknowingly did everything basically zone 2 training, so it ended up being perfect. A really good prep going up to Augusta. I mean, not to be competitive, but to finish, that was my goal for that one. And hurricanes came. So a hurricane was coming. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna leave Florida. I'm gonna get up to Augusta early, so there's no excuse for me to miss this race that I trained all summer for. Get to Augusta, and the day before the race, the hurricane hit Augusta harder than it hit my house in Florida and leveled Augusta. So canceled that race, and in a frenzy, I'm like, man, I trained for this, only for it to be canceled. So drove back to Florida. Next day, I'm like, out of anger, I'm like, I've done all this prep, I'm just gonna go run a half marathon. I'd never run that distance before, and it ain't my training. Maybe not my smartest idea, but I went out and I ran a half marathon. Then they sent out an email saying, hey, you can defer to all these other races. And Waco was, I believe, a week and a half later, so 2 weeks after my initial race. And I decided, I'm going to sign up for that one because I have extended family there. Once again, Jamie came in clutch, made a Facebook post because that's one of their hometowns that they lived in. That's where their family is from. And I got a donor bike, so I'm like, that's it. I'm ready to rock. No training, so at this point, going on almost 2.5 weeks of no training, I go to Waco. And that was my first 70.3 on a bike I'd never trained on. Nutrition, obviously I brought all that, but it was in a frenzy. And then during Waco that day, a hurricane was coming directly at my house. So I was thinking about, is my house gonna be okay? But really there was nothing I could do, so I just focused on my race. And my goal was to be sub 6 hours, so 5:59 I would have been happy with. Overall, I went out, the swim was very slow, on my fault. Bike was not great, and then the run was whatever. It was brutal conditions, blistering hot. Got it done in 6 hours and 36 seconds, but that was it. I had found it. This is what I want to do. So Waco was my driving force to keep going. It really lit the fire then. So come back to Florida, get back into training a little bit. That was probably mid-September. So I'm kind of slowly getting back into my training, building my base, and then come December, I see somebody posted on Facebook, hey, Ironman Japan just opened. I want to go to Japan, but I can't afford it, but they said this is a race you don't want to miss. So I kind of reached out to some local businesses, sponsors, companies to try to get some funding on board in order to get me both to Japan and through the 2025 race season. I got a couple people on board, as well as my work, Power Design. They were amazing in covering my entry. So if you know Ironman, you know that's huge. That's one of the biggest expenses in it. So I kind of jokingly reached out to them to see if they would cover it, and they did. So that locked me in December of 2024 to race, and I believe it was August of 2025 for a full distance Ironman, which I said and I told everybody I would never do. Little did I know I was doing it. So what do we know? The first 4 months of the year I'm traveling with my business every weekend, so my training is what I can get in on the weekdays and sometimes on Sundays, and when I'm traveling it's hit or miss. So first couple months of the year I knew, hey, let's just maintain our fitness. As soon as this is done, we're ramping it up. So that brings us to full Ironman Japan 2025 prep. All right, so going into this, I knew nothing. So I'm a bit obsessive over anything I do. I knew, sure, I wanted to finish. I didn't want a 17-hour finish. I wanted to finish I wanted 12 hours. And I felt like that was a respectable time for my first full. So after doing some research, I was trying to find training plans and all that. I came across this book, Your Best Triathlon. This was kind of my coach. This book right here, if you're looking to get into both any distance, this covers it all. I think there's a prequel to this that they recommend, but I didn't have time. I needed to start as soon as I found this, so I jumped right into this with a little bit of a modified training plan, kind of based off my principles, my time, my schedule, my weaknesses. So, Your Best Triathlon by Joe Friel. If I butchered that, sorry, but this book right here, great, especially if you have no clue what you're doing. This gives you a really, really, really good base. So my Ironman Japan build started probably about April of this year, 2025, which is Florida summers. Gotta love it. I just started building my base, probably around 8 hours of training. Then it went up to 9, 10, 11, 12, and towards the later half I was like 16, 17, 18 hours of just, that's like endurance based. I did manage to strength train 1 to maybe 2 days a week was my goal, but minimum 1 day. tried to get to unless my body was just not feeling it. If you've ever been to Florida during the summer, you know it's brutal. And when you're training for a full distance, you can't do it all in one session. I have a full-time job. I have a fiance, I have a dog, I have a house, I have other responsibilities as well. So that led me to getting up really early and never staying up late, but definitely double sessions, 6 days a week on a good week. I would try to have one day off where I would strength train light, nothing crazy, more so just like active recovery. And that was my build into Ironman Japan. Getting up at 4 a.m. on Saturdays to go drive an hour to the hills of Florida, and it was going to start at 82 degrees at 5:30 in the morning. Had those 5-hour rides, so by the time I was getting done at 10:30, 11 o'clock, just in time to start my run, it was 95 plus degrees. So brutal conditions, but I knew if I could manage these and my body could adapt to this heat, that all other things would fall into place, and come race day, I'd be in a really good place physically. So all my training done, peak heat. I would bike on my trainer 2 days a week. I was basically doing 3 to 4 bike sessions, 3 to 4 run sessions, and honestly 2 to 3 swim sessions a week. So I'd like to get 3, but it wouldn't always happen that way. So build went great. My biggest advice is if you're going to train, you need to have a massage therapist or recovery specialist of some sorts on speed dial. Every 4 weeks for me was going to my friend Skylar, sometimes more than that if needed, and it really helped keep me injury free, which is the biggest thing you need to do, is slowly build your volume, slowly build that base. Don't try to rip intensity right off the get-go. Build that base and then work in those intensity miles. And recovery is everything. So if you can find a good sports massage therapist, highly recommend that. It will save you a lot of money in the long run. So vital in this prep. As well as through this prep, I ended up getting engaged. So I went to Spain for a little trip. That's where I proposed. I managed to run there, nothing else but running. So it was kind of a good kind of taper pullback of a couple weeks. I got back and I bought a tri-bike because I knew I'm all in. So maybe I'll throw up a picture here of my bike and some of my races this year, but game changer, absolute game changer. The comfort, the way it feels, the speed, the aero coming from my road bike, which is a great road bike, and I'm really getting into that now. Great investment. So it's a Quintana Roo PR62, got a great deal. That's a whole nother topic, but love that thing. So closing in on Ironman Japan, started to get really nervous. I didn't know anybody personally. I knew one person who was giving me advice, so that's Keith. So shout out to Keith Lynch. He helped me kind of a lot when it comes to all of my training and moderation, and when I had questions, he'd be there to help me and just kind of keep an eye on me. Can't thank him enough for helping me, and he's really helping me now and becoming better. But Ironman Japan went incredible. I can do a whole separate video on that event itself, but I finished in 11:30, so with 5,000 feet plus elevation gain total. I could have probably finished a little bit quicker, but I really wanted to be conservative and just finish strong. My goal was no walking on the marathon, and I didn't walk at all. I had my knee lock up, but I did end up finishing pretty strong with a 4:06, so not the best, but also not the worst, and I know I had 30 plus minutes in the tank. I could have easily cut off. So where do we go from Ironman Japan? What's better than that? Flying halfway across the world is flying halfway back and doing Waco as a benchmark. So Waco 2025, right? Yeah, 2025, which was about a month ago now. Kind of using that as my benchmark each year. It's a great course, great director, great event overall, and I knew that coming from my previous year that it'd be a good just gauge on where my fitness is. So coming into Waco, 70.3, my goals were basically I just wanted to hammer the bike. I wanted a faster swim and just hang on for the run and see where the chips fall. I didn't really have a time I didn't want to put a time on it. I just wanted to pretty much redline now that I had a solid base and see what kind of progress I had made in this year. And my swim, I did 35 minutes, so not record breaking, but way faster than last year. Long transition, if you've been there, you know, 2:35 on the bike, so 30-minute PR for me on the bike alone, and then like a 1:50 half marathon. I was cooked. The bike did me in, but also the heat was no joke. If you've done Waco, you know it's just like all other Texas Ironman events. It's hotter than heck. So overall though, 5:17, so like a 45-minute PR. I was very, very happy with my Waco results in 2026. I went from probably a year and a half, I went from never running more than a mile to and not athletic at all, not coordinated, nothing, to 5:17. So couldn't be more happy. All right, so that almost catches us up to where we are now. So I started with no fitness, muscular, but muscular doesn't translate to endurance as far as like how fast you're gonna go. And I'm not a racer. Or I should say I am a racer, but I'm not somebody who wants to have a wall full of medals. I want a wall full of plaques. I want the 1, 2, or 3. I race to win. I know obviously in my building races, my building years that I'm considering those right now, I'm not gonna go out and win, but in the future I wanna be competitive in my age group and see where the chips fall. And right now we're on a good track to do that. So currently, we are about 4.5, 5 weeks out of Haines City 70.3. So my last race of the year. During this time between Waco and Haines City, I've decided to work on what I know I need to work on. My swim, I'm not going to gain a ton of time. I'm maintaining that, but I've got my road bike a lot and been hammering, joining some group rides, joining some people way faster than me. And really pushing on the road bike, and we're gonna see if that pans out when I hop back on my TT bike. I'm assuming it will, because it is way harder to ride that. I'm significantly slower on my road bike than I am on my TT bike. So when I get on that, we'll see how fast we go. So really curious to see how that translates. Maybe I'll make a whole nother video on that, but 2025, my goal is to finish this one strong, and then I will hopefully, if I finish fast enough, I will accumulate enough points to have the all-world athlete status going into next year, to get every little edge I can, starting swim earlier, lower bib numbers if possible, everything I can, because next year is when I want to make my run to be competitive in my age group. So going into Haines City, signed up for a half marathon, which is this weekend. We're gonna see how that goes. I'm just trying to work on my weaknesses and not straying away from people, instead trying to be with people who are better than me and really see where that lands my fitness come race day. All right, so that brings us to today. We're 30 days out of Haines City. It's crazy to see where I started to where I'm at. Started with no bike, now worked our way up to this beautiful thing behind me. Got my road bike on the trainer, which I've been really enjoying, and just logging some miles, progressing here for Haines City. So gonna finish the year strong, maybe do a race recap of all my races this year, maybe individually, maybe together, haven't decided yet, but that's my journey from 0 to Ironman. So follow along, gonna start trying to upload more regular training content. It's hard when you train alone to get this content, but we're gonna figure it out one way or another. So that's my story from 0 to where we are, and hopefully a lot more to go. So smile, or I guess you're doing it wrong. Let's go.